Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be learning all about the Washington Monument. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. When standing near the base of the Washington Monument, some visitors notice the ground feels slightly uneven. A popular rumor claims that because Washington, D.C. was built on a swamp, the 91,000-ton structure is actually slowly sinking and will eventually lean like the Tower of Pisa. Some say the National Park Service even has a secret engineering plan ready to prop it up before it falls. What do you think? Is this an actual fact, or does that story sound a bit askew? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is obelisk. That's O-B-E-L-I-S-K. An obelisk is a tall, four-sided, narrow tapering monument which ends in a pyramid-like shape or pyramidion at the top. These structures originated in ancient Egypt, where they were carved from single pieces of stone and placed in pairs at the entrances of temples to honor their sun god. The shape is highly stable, which allows builders to construct soaring towers that draw the eye straight up toward the sky. The word obelisk comes from the ancient Greek word obeliskos, which translates to a small spit or nail. When Greek travelers first visited Egypt and saw these massive stone pillars, they used the term to describe the pointed shapes. And then it just kind of stuck and eventually made its way into Latin and then English. When the architect Robert Mills submitted his design for the Washington Monument in the 1830s, he specifically chose the obelisk form to convey timeless strength, directly connecting the memory of America's first president to the grandeur of antiquity. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about the Washington Monument. Number 1. The Washington Monument is 555 feet and 5 1/8 inches tall. Most structures, hundreds of feet tall, are supported by an inner framework made of steel, but not the Washington Monument. The walls are constructed from 3,491 blocks of white marble, granite, and bluestone gneiss. The base walls are 15 feet thick, providing the foundation to support the immense vertical load. As the tower rises, the walls gradually taper down to a thickness of just about 18 inches near the observation deck at the top. This tapering helps to distribute the weight to keep the structure stable. The 91,000-ton obelisk has shown itself to be rock solid, even in the face of serious weather events. In a standard 30-mile-an-hour gust of wind, the top will only sway about 1/8 of an inch. In wind speeds reaching 145 miles an hour, the structure still holds firm. Even during a rare 5.8 magnitude earthquake in 2011, the structure survived. Number 2. The tip of the Washington Monument is capped with aluminum, which was once actually considered more precious than gold. At the very peak of the monument, there's a small pyramid-shaped cap made of solid aluminum. In December of 1884, when this 100-ounce capstone was cast and placed, aluminum was considered a rare and extremely valuable metal. The refining process was difficult at the time, making aluminum cost as much as silver and sometimes even more than gold. The builders chose that metal because it doesn't tarnish and, I guess as a bonus, it functions as an excellent lightning rod to protect the stone below. Before the capstone was permanently installed, it was actually put on public display at Tiffany's jewelry store in New York City. People lined up to marvel at the rare metal chunk before it was transported to Washington, D.C. Just a few years later, in 1886, a new chemical process made aluminum cheap and widely available. This new technique, known as the Hall-Héroult process, was named for the American chemist and French engineer who both independently discovered the method. For those who are wondering, basically it works by dissolving aluminum oxide, alumina, into a molten bath of cryolite, which lowers the melting point of the mixture so it can conduct electricity. Then a strong electrical current is applied to separate the pure aluminum from the oxygen. The oxygen joins with carbon anodes and escapes the mixture as carbon dioxide gas, while pure liquid aluminum settles at the bottom. Before that, aluminum had to undergo a multi-step process using reactions with pure alkali metals, and that was time-consuming, resource-intensive, and therefore very expensive. Number 3. There's no mortar holding the stones together in the Washington Monument. Unlike typical brick or masonry buildings that use wet mortar to bind the blocks, the Washington Monument relies almost entirely on principles of gravity and friction. The massive stone blocks were carved and shaped so their surfaces fit together seamlessly. Workers used block and tackle systems and steam-powered elevators to hoist the heavy stones into place, and then they stacked the blocks directly on top of one another using just the sheer weight of the stone to lock everything in position. This dry-laid construction method requires incredible precision from the stonecutters. If the stones were uneven, the structural integrity would be compromised, and the entire tower would fail under the crushing weight. Army Corps of Engineers Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Lincoln Casey oversaw the final phases of construction, ensuring the foundations and block joints were flawless. The fact that the stones have remained tightly bound together for over a century without mortar is just an amazing testament to the precision and quality craftsmanship of those late 19th century workers. Number 4. The original design for the Washington Monument actually had a massive circular temple at the base of the tower. When the architect Robert Mills won the design competition in 1836, his vision for the monument was far more elaborate than the sleek, unadorned obelisk we see today. His original blueprints included a massive circular colonnade surrounding the base. This temple-like structure was intended to be 250 feet in diameter and 100 feet tall, with 30 columns around it. The roof of this base building would have held a statue of George Washington dressed in a toga and riding a horse-drawn chariot. Thankfully, the budget forced them to pare down the design. Financial constraints and shifting political priorities ultimately forced the Washington National Monument Society to scrap the elaborate base. The society had to rely on public donations to lay the first stones, and they simplified the design to work with what they had. I have to say, as a bit of an art nerd, I am very happy they did. Having looked at images of that early draft, I get the appeal to history with columns that give it the feel of something deeply rooted in ancient civilization, but there's an elegance in the simplicity. By making it a minimalist tower, it became a more modern feeling icon. Rather than simply mimicking what's been done in the past, the Washington Monument takes those ancient materials and methods to new heights, and I can't think of a better tribute. And our fifth and final fun fact for today: the construction process was interrupted, and for 25 years, the monument was just kind of an unfinished stump. The cornerstone of the monument was laid on July 4th, 1848, but construction stopped abruptly in 1854 when the tower was just 152 feet tall. The Washington National Monument Society ran out of money, and political disputes surrounding the Know Nothing Party caused public donations to dry up. For the next 2 decades, the unfinished structure just sat awkwardly on the National Mall. During the Civil War, the grounds around the monument were utilized as a cattle yard and a slaughterhouse to feed Union troops. Then, in 1876, the U.S. Congress assumed financial responsibility for the project. The Army Corps of Engineers took over the construction, strengthened the foundation, and resumed building in 1879. The capstone was finally set in place in 1884, completing a project that had spanned nearly 40 years from its initial groundbreaking ceremony. Now for some news you can use. If you want to get to ride the elevator up to the top of the Washington Monument and experience that 500-foot observation deck, you're going to need to plan ahead. Tickets routinely sell out within seconds, especially during peak tourist season, basically March through August and December into early January. The trick is to visit the government website recreation.gov exactly 30 days in advance of your planned visit and at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the dot. Make sure you have your account created, your payment information saved, and the page constantly refreshing right at that hour mark. Reservations can be booked 30 days in advance, but if you miss that 30-day window, there is a second chance to secure access. A limited number of next day tickets are released every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time for the following day's tours. This means if you want to visit on a Tuesday, you should be online and ready to click right at 10 a.m. Monday morning. Finally, the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked, is the Washington Monument really slowly sinking into the swamp and destined to lean over time? Thankfully, this one is pure fiction. While it is true that early Washington, D.C. had marshy areas, the idea that the monument is sinking into a swamp just doesn't hold up. The origin of this myth is rooted in some actual historical engineering challenges, though. When construction resumed in the 1870s after a 25-year delay, engineers realized the original foundation was just too small to support the planned weight of the finished obelisk. To prevent a disaster like a leaning or even worse, falling monument, Lieutenant Colonel Casey and the Army Corps of Engineers oversaw a massive multi-year underpinning project. His team excavated under the existing structure and poured a new foundation of concrete and stone, drastically deepening and widening the base. This reinforced footprint successfully distributes the 91,000-ton weight of the monument, so the tower will remain perfectly upright and structurally sound. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about the Washington Monument with me today, and be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.